My philosophy has always been no risk, no reward. That's not everyone's. As a creative person, I think I have that sort of, I won't say impulsiveness, but that desire to really stand out and do something different. I always knew that I wanted to work with the best and brightest, both in creative and in business enterprises, sort of marrying art and commerce. There's always been sort of a visual line that runs through it, but it all comes back to branding and identity.
On this episode of CLevel, I have Courtney Lukitsch, CCO of Gotham PR. So today on CLevel, I have Courtney Lukitsch. She is the CEO and founder of Gotham PR. Today, we're going to be talking a lot about branding and marketing. So Courtney, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, thank you for jumping on here. So let my audience know a little bit about you, how you got, where you from, how'd you get started in PR, how'd you build your company?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I originally am from DC. I grew up all around the world. I speak a lot of different languages. I landed in New York City in the early 2000s, started out in tech at Internet 1.0, worked at a lot of different agencies, huge corporations, including IBM. I worked on agency of record there. And then eventually founded my own firm in 2002, right after 9/11. Great time to start in New York. So it is a good time to start
a company during a pandemic, right?
Exactly. And that's what I tell every entrepreneur that comes to me. This is a great time to start a business. So I'm now in year 18. I have clients in 30 countries, in 25 US markets, and I've tripled my client roster in the last 9 months.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, so we have 3 offices. Yeah. So we're in New York, London, and now I just opened a satellite office in Florida. And right now we're working on the Miami Art Week, which is somewhat abbreviated this year. We're doing a lot of virtual and immersive activities.
So how are you doing that? How are you working with some of your clients that, I know like the event space has gotten hit really, really hard. Yeah. So how have you navigated some of that with some of your clients?
A lot of virtual conferences. Zoom, of course, has been everybody's savior in this context. And experiential is a realm I've always worked in technology. So working with branding experts and creatives of all kind, we've always been visual in nature, and also sort of moving around. We're always traveling. So this has actually been a lot of found time where people are sort of creating new businesses, platforms, ideating. I myself am writing a book called Creating Significance, what it's like working with all of these creatives, and some great case studies for young entrepreneurs. It's targeted at Gen Z, 65% of which I think are going to be starting businesses straight out of school.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Well, and it's funny, we started this conversation like you started your company, during 9/11. And so Let's talk about that. Like you hit on something really good. Like starting a company now could be a wise decision.
Right. Well, my philosophy has always been no risk, no reward. That's not everyone's. As a creative person, I think I have that sort of, I won't say impulsiveness, but that desire to really stand out and do something different. I always knew that I wanted to work with the best and brightest, both in creative and in business enterprises, sort of marrying art and commerce. So right out of the gate, we were really lucky. Courtney signed us on, and that was sort of the height of hip hop. We got to work with every entertainer, travel all over the country, including going to France where the product was made. And one success begat another. Then we started working with HBO. We worked on Sex and the City, and that begat a bunch of film collaborations and fashion. So again, there's always been sort of a visual line that runs through it, but it all comes back to branding and identity, which I think is more important than ever. So that I think is really the foundational point for any business starting now. We have such a visually literate culture. People expect great design and great branding, which I know is what you guys do at your agencies. So that's really the sort of diving board, the platform that I encourage every client to start with. Anyone who consults with me. And again, not every individual is a talent or a brand per se, but I do think that that's a strong foundation for starting a business in 2021, especially.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the world has changed. Everything has changed, right? And we've been obviously preaching this for many years. Is your brand is extremely important, especially on social media and content. Getting content, about whether it's you personally or your corporation. Mostly you personally, like especially if you're in B2B, because the way it used to be back in the day, whereas, you know, you had a logo, a company logo, and that's what you would stand behind as the brand logo. Whereas now with social media and everything going on, the brand is you. People want to know the heartbeat behind the company. So if you're the CEO or the founder, people want to know what's going on. And even more importantly, when COVID hit, right, and the lockdowns happened, and I know, like, we're at the time of this recording, we're going back into the second phase. There are some states now that are starting to lock down. What do you do if you haven't branded yourself and you haven't pushed out content on social media? You're going to be left in the dark, you know.
Right. It really is about mission, about values. I just published a piece for the Forbes Council on that very topic about skilling up into 2021. And it's a little bit shame on you if you aren't learning new things during this bound time. And those skills will be really invaluable. I'm seeing that we're putting together film deals, acquiring hotels abroad through developer clients. I mean, sometimes all it takes is one email or one telephone call because people have this desire to build and grow and do things in a new way. And I think, to your point, that is a reflection of any CEO, is that mission driven. Do you want to be the best in category? Do you want to be of service? Do you want to change the world in a positive way? And there is a choice. From where I'm sitting, I get to curate my client roster, which I think is a tremendous privilege. You know, and I'm sure you guys are somewhat similar. I think it's great when people are just starting out and they use the clip art and the found, you know, source materials and the Squarespaces and the WordPress, and all of that has tremendous value. But then going to the next level, right, that sort of leveling up juncture at any company or brand is to work with professionals. And so I always say, surround yourself with experts, every kind of expert.
100%.
Possibly, yeah. And again, they're more available now than they ever have been. Writing coaches, branding experts such as yourself, nutritionists, wellness. It's all part and parcel of you have to take care of yourself to run a thriving business.
You know, I love that piece of information, because, like, a lot of people, when they're just starting out, you know, all right, you might not have the funding, you may not have certain things, but there are things that you can do, you know. And so in speaking in the branding space now, you know, our company does, you know, productions, and we do a lot of stuff for our clients so they don't have to. But there are things that if you're just getting started out, I mean, everybody's got a phone in their pocket, right? Everybody's got a camera, right? Everybody can push content, and it's just being disciplined and getting those things out, right? And so there are things you can do, but once you get to a certain point, you know, like I always say, like, our best clients are the people that know how to do it by themselves, but they just don't have the time to do it. They'd rather focus on what their core business is. And to your point, hiring the people that specialize in those areas so you don't have to worry about it. You know, so if you're in engineering or you're in construction or you're whatever field you're in, you can stay focused on that. Hire the professionals to help brand you or help do those things. You want to surround yourself with those type of people to level up.
Right. I mean, media relations is certainly a big part of it, but minus that brand component, you only get so far.
Right.
Same with business development, same with marketing. And again, not all content is quality content. Not everything that people are pushing out there. So they really do require some coaching on the perception point, which I think is something we should underline 3 times in this conversation. And again, that's where a strategist and a counselor who has positioned and launched hundreds of first in category brands, companies, firms, you know, B2B repositionings, succession plans, change management comes to the fore. And again, you know, I prefer to be almost a well-kept secret, but I'm encouraged now to be a little more over the radar, more comfortable behind the camera than in front of it, I should say.
Well, you know, I think everybody needs a coach. Everybody needs that person that is gonna, you know, hold them accountable to certain things. I mean, that's the biggest thing that we find is, you know, there's a lot of people out there that know that they're supposed to be pushing content and content at scale. But number one, they need to hold it accountable, like not what you had for lunch yesterday, right? You're a thought leader, you're a business leader. So let's keep it to your audience. So keeping it accountable, and then just doing it. You know, making sure that, you know, you've got something set up on your calendar and you're pushing content. You know, if you're in the B2B space, I mean, LinkedIn is huge, like, for content, and having a producer or somebody, you know, your PR rep saying, hey, you're doing this, all right? And this is on your calendar, because we all know, I mean, us as CEOs, we get really, really busy. And so having that other person hold you accountable is
Right.
what's going to get you there.
Not least of which is support. And I find that I do a lot of coaching and handholding and just general sort of guidance, I guess. Do you have a lawyer? Are you protecting your IP? Do you have a copyright? It always surprises me. People will get to year 5 in their business and they haven't taken on, the right accountant or the right legal representation. They can really, particularly in New York, it's such a competitive arena, really have to protect themselves. And so acting as that sort of due diligence arbiter without sounding too strict is really a part of it. Yeah, everybody wants to do the fun, soft skills, social media stuff. And to a certain extent, I had to actually fire a client a couple weeks ago because they thought that the sole function of a launch was really around Instagram. Yes, that's one part of it, certainly. But if you want to sell, you have to put things across the wire. You have to position it with the right publications. And again, that doesn't happen overnight. It can, but it's not very often that it works out that way. So there is a process involved and a methodology, which I know I'm singing to the choir on this, but it bears repeating. Because I talk to CEOs all the time that they think the next day they'll be in the Wall Street Journal. Yes, they might within 2 weeks because that's the normal time frame.
Right.
If it's a compelling enough story. But, there are those campaigns that can last upwards of a year to see demonstrated press results.
100%, because and we always say, branding takes time. It takes a lot of time. It takes years sometimes, I mean, yes, you have some of that one article that was really good, or that one piece of video that went viral, but it doesn't always happen instantaneous, and so the thing is just do, right? Because you get a lot of these people that are like, oh yeah, well, next week I want to be in the Wall Street Journal. Well, okay, that's great, but what content have you done? Have you even have the practice? Have you ever even been on camera before, right?
Right. Well, the media training, and that's something that you could probably speak to as well. And some clients I'm softer with than others because they are expert communicators, such as yourself. You clearly have been media trained, and also you do media train professionally, as do I. And then there are some clients that just really, they ask me, can you be my spokesperson? Can you do it for me? And that's not really a part of our job, right? So that accountability that you're speaking to is stepping up and willing to go to that next level. And it is work. It does entail time, investment. And when people get involved with me, all of a sudden they say, whoa, I got to strap in for the ride, because it starts going really fast. It accelerates rapidly. And, it's exhilarating when you see the end result, but it's not for everyone. You have to be careful what you ask for, as I always say. You might get it.
Right. So we mentioned a little bit. So you have a book, Creating Significance.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about that. Tell me about the book.
It's building a brand that lasts. And anybody who looks at our Gotham PR client roster will see that they're almost exclusively first in category brands, which means creating a category in some instances that didn't exist before. And that can be anything from sustainability, or to your point, for B2B firms, capabilities that the general market didn't know were even available. So many talented individuals and creatives, artists, designers of all stripes. It's really been quite a journey, and I wanted to document that for entrepreneurs, to show them, there is a pathway, and also to save them some of the time and lessons learned that I didn't know. Sometimes you learn by doing, and that was my experience. But now, to our earlier discussion, there are so many experts around that weren't then, particularly after 9/11, when I started my business. We just kind of went on instinct and went for it. And there's something to that, sort of that maverick tendency. I think you don't make it as an entrepreneur. You could probably agree with that. If you don't have that drive. It's a temperament. It is as much as it is an opportunity. And I've talked to a lot of people who say, oh, I'd love to have a business, but I can't come up with a business plan. Well, that's not, that's sort of weak.
Excuses, not, I mean, you're quitting before you even started.
That's right.
Right. I mean, there's so many entrepreneurs like, you don't have to know everything. There are some people out there that are trying to wait until they know everything before they start their business.
It's never going to happen.
No, it's never going to happen.
Right.
Every person, no matter who you are, there's a learning process. Now, there's some people that are seasoned. Obviously, they've been in the business for years, but they're still learning. There's always more
every day.
Every day. There's always more to learn. And so if you allow yourself to get trapped in that, to where it's like, well, everything's not perfect, I'm not going to start, you'll never launch, you'll never get out there. So.
It's a learning lifestyle, and I can say that one day is not even remotely, representative of the next. It's completely unique, and again, there's that sort of fluid nature, and you know what I mean, since you work in broadcasting, that you have to keep your schedule open, and as much as we calendar activities, you've got to have that sort of flow so that you can be creative and be receptive to these opportunities. Just this morning, I put together people in the UK, Australia, New York City, now in LA. Everybody's in vastly different time zones, but now they're all collaborating, again, thanks to Zoom and thanks to just a simple introduction. So being that kind of facilitator, I find very exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, Courtney, we're coming up to the top of our episode here. I always like to end with one question. So if there was one piece of advice that you would give to, say, somebody starting a business or an entrepreneur out there, what would that be?
Seek professional guidance, because people, in my experience, and again, mine has been very unique, but people say yes more than they say no. And anytime anyone emails me, I always come up with a qualified answer, or referral, somebody to help them if I cannot. And so I think if you don't ask, you don't get an answer, to your point.
Awesome. I love that. So seek professional guidance. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone and ask, and surround yourself with professionals. I love it. Thank you so much for coming on, Courtney.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning into the episode. If you guys enjoyed it, show some love, give me a thumbs up, and subscribe. Also, make sure you check out our exclusive CLevel group on Facebook.